All right, now time for part 4 of the post E3 State of Gaming podcast. And now we talk about Sony and their technical issues and all their games.
Yeah, I like this new trend they're starting with the whole music in the beginning of the conference, and it builds the mood a little bit, and you're like, oh, I wonder what it could possibly be, and you have your friends guessing, oh, this is gonna be this, it's gonna be this. But yeah, the lack of sound when the Uncharted Lost Legacy demo was finally revealed was a bit underwhelming, and I feel like that kind of put a damper on the experience a little bit.
It definitely is not a good thing.
No, but however, I do have to say that Lost Legacy does look good. I mean, it's Uncharted. It's going to be visually stunning. It's going to have some great story and action elements. I'm worried that if they keep releasing, sort of spin-off Uncharted games, that eventually, might get a bit stale.
Yeah.
But, again, this is Naughty Dog. I kind of trust them, and I don't want to lose hope in what they can do. I mean, if I lose hope in Naughty Dog, then I don't know. I don't know where it's going after that. It's a slippery slope.
Wow. So far away from having to be concerned.
Yeah, exactly. We're not there yet. So, but it's just... Maybe I'm overthinking things here, but I'm hoping Lost Legacy turns out just fine. I'm hoping everything they put out after that is just fine. I know we didn't see any of Last of Us 2, probably because they wanted to keep Lost Legacy center stage, and that's the one that's coming out sooner than later.
Still kind of disappointing, because it's been quite a few months since we got the first announcement and trailer for Last of Us 2, so it would have been nice to have seen something, but if I get to guess, we probably will see something before the end of the year.
I promise you will see December 9th, 10th at the PlayStation Experience. Yeah. Because, I mean, by that point, all we'll be missing, the big things we'll be missing are God of War, Spider-Man, and Last of Us Part 2. And Last of Us Part 2 will be Naughty Dog's full-on project at that point. Yeah. So I have no doubt in my mind that'll be the big show where we'll probably get that first or last in that conference. So I'm not even going to talk about this that much because I really don't know what else to say, but Knack 2 is coming out in September, and I don't really like Knack. I'm just gonna say it. It wasn't an abysmal game. It was just I don't care. It's it's the epitome of a game that's just it existed, and I only cared about it because it was one of the only games when PS4 came out. Now they're bringing co-op, and I'd be surprised if they managed to really rejuvenate that IP. But I don't really have any interest or hope for Knack 2. But who knows, right? Who knows?
You never know, right? You never know.
I just want to bring up real quick a game that actually wasn't in the conference, but they showed before, called Hidden Agenda by Supermassive Games, the people who made Until Dawn. And now this game is sort of introducing a multiplayer component where all your friends they have their phones out, and you have a little app playing where you have data. You're all different detectives, and you can screw each other over, and you can one of you could be the murderer, and it's just I find that's a really interesting approach to a game, and I've never really seen anything like that, especially in a David Cagey game like Until Dawn or Hidden Agenda, where it's cinematic and there's a lot of choices and characters can die, and now you have a co-op component. So I think that's interesting. I want to see where that goes. It's risky, and I think that's what we need in the game industry, like we were saying at the different conferences in our discussions. But I am a bit worried maybe that whole co-op component won't work out so well. Fortunately, the game can also be played solo, but I think that multiplayer component's really what could make this game stand out.
Yeah, for sure.
And right, so I think the next big thing they showed was Days Gone. So the first time they showed that off, they really showcased the whole massive number of zombies.
Yeah.
This time they did show a few scenes with a bunch of zombies, but that really wasn't the main focus. Now it was more it felt more like the first time we saw The Last of Us, where it was focusing on the personal story and some of the great combat
things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the details of the game looked really cool. The visuals were nice. There's a motorcycle that you can ride around. I'm not really sure how open the game is, but I mean,
it's open enough for a motorcycle. So
right,
there's that.
There's vehicles. Right, and the way that they showed how you can pit zombies against the human villains, which I thought was neat as well. I don't know how scripted that event was where you blow up that dam, but
yeah, I don't think it was that scripted, because I know afterwards they had another gameplay demo where they had the same series of events but played out differently.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I didn't watch the whole thing, but that first scene where he hits the tripwire or whatever and comes off his motorcycle.
Yeah.
There's a way where that plays out completely differently. That wasn't scripted. He could have approached that ambush not on the road, come around and then seen the guys and taking them out before they got the jump on him, that kind of stuff.
Oh damn. Okay, well I think that's pretty cool. I hope the game has a ton of moments like that, because then it would be really replayable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. Like, I think it looks great. I hope that this could live up to games like Naughty Dog's titles, like Last of Us.
Yeah.
Because it looks like that's style of game, like third person action, story heavy, and I mean, Sony's great with that. So I'm hoping that's how it.
Yeah, there's definitely potential, but you got to do a lot to make it stand out in a very bloated genre. Both zombies, and there's a lot of that style game on PlayStation. You know, Last of Us, Uncharted, like they're basically making a Naughty Dog style game.
Yeah.
So that it's stiff competition no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on them for that as well. Yeah. We know Horizon Zero Dawn is getting DLC as well, and it
to be expected.
Yeah, of course. They even, I think, mentioned earlier that they were going to definitely do it. I don't really know what's going on. There was like a colorful pond. There was a mountain, and
yeah, we couldn't hear, so we don't know what.
Yeah, there was that. Starring Aloy, so we know we're still playing as the main character from Horizon Zero Dawn. Honestly, not much else is known about that. I'm sure it's going to be good. Horizon Zero Dawn was an excellent game, and I'm sure it's just going to be, more of that. Hopefully with a couple of cool new weapons to play with. And new dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Robo dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Now we have a big Monster Hunter game coming.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm not a massive Monster Hunter fan, but
I was never a big player of it either, but
the demo looked really cool, though.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. The monsters looked cool. The combat was interesting. There was some humor as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's definitely got potential.
Yeah, you can, cook them. You can, the way you trap them, the way you attack them is really cool. You have kind of a grappling hook sort of style weapon. Yeah. I don't know. I think it looks interesting.
And the way he was able to chase them throughout the map, so it's not like a scripted single area. Open. So you can go to this other area, and then presumably other monsters will potentially jump in, and then other players can jump in, and human allies, and so there's a lot of potential there. It could be a really good open world sandbox. Just let's go hunt monsters.
Well, we're supposed to be not getting Monster Hunter XX in the West, so I guess this is Capcom's solution to that problem by bringing in another Monster Hunter, which is supposed to be this penultimate Monster Hunter game that we're going to be seeing. I think it's coming to PC. I'm not 100% sure, but seeing a multi-platform release for Monster Hunter game like this is pretty cool. And I think if there's going to be a huge online community, this could stand to be a pretty massive game.
Definitely, yeah.
And let's talk about one of the big surprises, which was Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
I love the way that they introduced it to, we were at the PlayStation showing at the theater, but when the second they showed the first image, you already get the tone of Shadow of the Colossus, you get sort of the mood.
Yeah.
And people are like, wait.
You could already sense the excitement.
Yeah.
Even I barely played Shadow of the Colossus, the original PS2 version. I played it a little bit. But even I was like, that building and architecture looks familiar.
Yeah,
I'm like,
where have I seen this before? And then I heard someone behind me say, that's the bridge. And I was like, that's it. It's Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah. And then it just cuts to they didn't even really have music. It was just so the tone was so strong. You see the monsters turning, and the graphics were so much better. The fur on the monsters was great. Oh my god, it's the lighting. Oh, seeing Shadow of the Colossus very good, like that. It had me pretty excited. And I only finished Shadow of the Colossus pretty recently, in the past few years. So I guess I don't know if it was as impactful on me knowing that I just beat it now. And seeing how good it was made me think oh shit, I have to buy it again. But you know what? I don't even care. It looked so nice, and I'm hoping that they do add some sort of extra content, even if it's some of the cut monsters, because I think there are about 8 that they cut from the original game. If they throw those in, I'll have no qualms buying that over again. Yeah. So yeah, that's all there really is to say about Shadow of the Colossus. We saw some more of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and we saw some of the roster. It was really... There's a story mode now, and it was really weird to see the characters talking to each other, Dante and Rocket Raccoon. It's these characters would never meet, and now they're all just homies. It was funny, but it was wow, this is really strange, and you just can't shake that weird.
Well, it's kind of the point of those crossover games, right?
Exactly.
It's to throw those weird interactions between characters that would never interact with each other,
Yeah, having a villain from Marvel being Chris Redfield. I've been waiting to meet you. It's just it's so bizarre, but it's almost funny in a way. Even if they're not trying to be funny, it'll always kind of be funny. But
for sure.
I tried the demo out and it was pretty good. I mean, I don't think it's anything that no one's expecting. It's just another Marvel vs. Capcom game. I just hope that the roster lives up to people's expectations. I know we're not going to be seeing X-Men, so just keep it interesting. From what I saw in the demo, there was
definitely looked interesting.
Yeah. So we saw some Call of Duty World War II's multiplayer. I mean,
it was short and sweet. I mean,
yeah.
I like, and we'll talk about Destiny as well. I liked that for both of those games, instead of being like huge time consumers, which I think a lot of people were worried it would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were just like any other game, despite the fact that these are two huge franchises with somewhat exclusive deals with PlayStation. They just treated it like any other game, which I really appreciated, because I was worried that we were going to sit there for maybe an hour and a half and 40 minutes of it was going to be split between these
Destiny
two games.
World War II, yeah.
It said, no, we just got a few minute trailer for both, and that was it. And I really,
beautiful.
I really liked it. Not just because it was short, but because also, at least with the Call of Duty, I felt like, it looked good. Like, I feel like this could be a chance for Call of Duty to kind of
redeem itself,
regain its footing, so to speak. I mean, it worked really well going back to, well, not back to, but going to World War I for Battlefield. So Call of Duty going back to its roots, certainly as someone who played the original Call of Duties and still thinks that they're the better ones, it's got my attention. And I mean, I'm a sucker for a World War II shooter, and Call of Duty's always been my favorite among those. So it's got my attention.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, I think I'm more interested in the campaign, so I'm just waiting to see maybe a bit more of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're getting into VR territory. Yeah. So there was a few of those that they showed off.
And there was one big one they showed off. Everything else was kind of, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, this Skyrim.
Everyone's waiting for Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim
like
VR.
Scrolls VR. Are you kidding? With the magic in either hand?
Yeah.
Oh man, like feels like you're shooting Kamehamehas with fireballs. Oh.
Yeah, that's got, again, it's in line with like Fallout doing it and Doom having its own VR version. To me, this is probably the best thing right now that Bethesda's doing, because it's taking the chance to see, okay, can real AAA games make the transition to VR, still be enjoyable, and really take advantage of what VR can do? Because like I've said before, most of the games out now are gimmicky or very limited in what you can do. They're still great experiences and still immersive, but until I can play a game like Skyrim or The Witcher or Doom in a full VR comfortable experience, then it's not going to be something that's going to really take off.
Yeah, I completely agree. I even think there were a couple other ones they showed that could have potential. I mean, Superhot VR is already out on PC, and that game it's pretty solid. It's not a very long experience, but it's a good game, and seeing that being added to the PS VR library was a pleasant surprise. Bravo Team, I mean, probably nominated for the worst game title I've ever seen. But having another shooter, multiplayer shooter, is a good idea. These are things that the library needs to survive. And if people are really getting on board with PSVR, which is the cheapest option, then having a massive library of whether they're good or not of games is what it needs to survive.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have also Final Fantasy 15 Fishing. I'm not gonna say much more about that.
Not much to say on that.
No. There's a game called Star Child. There was a game called Moss. They all looked like they had potential, but there was really nothing that stood out to me personally. I feel like when you're watching a VR game being played on a screen, it's not the same experience. You really need to try
you can't
to
really
know
get
why it's good.
To know it, yeah.
All right, so now let's get to some of the more juicy stuff. God of War, which we're getting next year, and its full name is God of War. It's not going to have any subtitles. It's not God of War 4. It's just, I guess,
again, another soft reboot, so to speak.
Yeah. So some interesting things that we saw though from that trailer, aside from the giant snake monster in the water, was, I guess, how his past came back. I thought that was really interesting when they showed the Greek vase and he's on it, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you people were supposed to be civilized," and so that's interesting. The game is definitely taking a more slow-paced approach. I mean, it's definitely gonna have that combat that we're used to, like the hack and slash, but it's like the camera's a lot more close to Kratos, and it's gonna be I think it goes in hand with the more personal story they're telling this time around, rather than like blood, just pure bloodlust. This time it's going to be about him and his son.
Yeah,
I guess.
I think it's said it's his son.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see how that works too. Like the relationship between him and the boy it's definitely interesting. I'm wondering. I feel like we're missing something. They haven't told us something about that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the highlights for me, learning about how they really connected. and how the relationship is going to grow during the game. So yeah, I'm also curious to see some more gods, because we saw like that wolf. I'm wondering if that wolf was one of the gods. We saw that guy who's kind of making fun of him, and he throws Zax. So there's gonna be some humor. All around, it looks like a great game visually, and I mean, it's a God of War game. It's by Sony Santa Monica. I have such high hopes for this.
It's definitely got potential to be a big system seller for PlayStation. Among many other games they have. But it's good to see that they seem to be continuing the trend of having good exclusive games, first party games.
Speaking of which, Insomniac working on Spider-Man, which
had a nice big showing.
Oh man, I mean, a lot of people are kind of concerned. They're like, "Oh, is it going to be just quick time events?" The game, and I don't know. It didn't bother me so much because I knew we were looking at a set piece. I knew that like those kind of events could not be orchestrated in any other way. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want the game to be full of those and just be like kind of eaten up by quick time events that are removed from you. But we saw a ton of combat also, like the way that he was jumping over bullets and like his Spidey sense mode and like webbing people, and the different ways he was webbing people was really what got me. And the way he was able to take objects from the environment and attack with those, the way he set like kind of a mine at one point, jumping over people, doing all sorts of melee combat. It just looks good. Like there's no two ways about it. But for me, really the crux of that entire thing was the web slinging. Everyone wanted to see it. We wanted to know how they were going to do it. And they just did it so right. Like the physics and the weight of his swing and the way that it connects to each building, like individually, that's so smart. Like they've been messing it up nonstop in the past little while, and I'm happy that we are putting our trust in Insomniac with this. The way that you kind of swing and the way you can kind of turn corners and the way you kind of run against the building is just so, it conveys momentum, and it's just, it works so well for a Spider-Man game, and it makes it look alive, and I think that's the most important thing here. And all I'm waiting to see now at this point is, are we going to get a ton of villains? Are we going to get a good story? Because if we get that, then this could be a huge franchise for Sony to have. If Insomniac keeps making Spider-Man games exclusive to PS4, that's a pretty big deal.
That's especially with the Spider-Man movie coming out.
Exactly.
And presumably more Spider-Man movies. Like, there's a big potential there to really expand and have another thing that you can only experience on the PlayStation. It's definitely a big deal.
All right. Do you have anything else to add, or is that a?
Well, I just want to say, like, just a general thought on like the structure. Like, I've always found Sony, just minus their technical issues, seems to understand how to do a conference. I mean, one guy came up and talked twice for a total of 5 minutes. Yeah, the conference felt short as a result because it wasn't padded with meaningless discussions, and I feel like they just get it. Like, we're not here to see a bunch of people who look like Bond villains talk about how great their shitty games are going to be. We just want to see the games. And yeah, if you're talking about something really massive or like special mechanics, whatever, okay, it's nice to have someone come out and explain it. But although there was no big surprises for Sony, I still think they had the best conference structurally, because it was just game after game after game after game, and they all looked good, minus the technical issues at first. And yeah, like, sure, it would be nice to have a Last of Us appearance and maybe a bigger surprise than just a remake of a classic game. But hey, everything still looked great.
We did miss one game, Detroit Become Human.
Right, yes,
which, I mean, I really enjoy David Cage's games. I know he's kind of like a controversial subject. Like, a lot of people don't like him, a lot of people do like him. It was a really strange approach they had this time, though. Like, the kind of a more action-packed situation here, where we have the characters sort of deciding whether to bring like the robots to a revolution, and what it made me think of was like, oh my god, like, are your characters gonna be against each other? Like, that's a really interesting scenario that they could set up, because you're playing as a detective as well. So if you have a detective working with humans against sort of these anarchists, these robo-anarchists, I think you could have a really good philosophical story being told about like what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious. Yeah. And all I'm just hoping is that they are as loyal to the branching storylines as they showed. Because, like, I mean, some of the dialogue was hit or miss that we saw in that trailer, the way he's talking to, like, the people. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there was one point where he's like, are you with me? And they're like, we're with you. He's like, you're with me, or something. He just kept saying, like, I don't know, it didn't jive so well. But that aside, I'm just hoping the branching storylines work just as well as in any other game, if not better than the past Quantic Dream games. And then I think I'll be happy. And that's just, like you said, it's just another great game to have on Sony's console. So I think overall they're doing a really good job.
I'm definitely excited for that. Like, I like how they really gave us more for an idea of what the story's gonna be like. The game a very Deus Ex kind of feel, which is great because I love that kind of setting. And so yeah, that's definitely a game I'm gonna keep my eyes on as we get closer to launch.
All right.
But yeah, I think that about sums it up for Sony. Next, we'll talk about Bethesda and EA, and then we'll finish off with our final thoughts.